We're going. Hey, everybody. It looks like I'm live. So your live message tells me. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing better than we are over at the White House, because it was a long week last week, and it was an interesting week this week because I broke my foot at Comic-Con, and Rebecca got sick, and then today Sam got sick. So we are the HP at the White House is flashing red. So yeah, it's been a crazy one. So it's just me here. Can everybody hear me? First of all, okay. Everybody pop me into the chat. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm going to wait because I know we're on like a 5-second delay or something. So, yeah, everybody can hear me. All right. I knew I'd get the yeps here soon. Boy, there was a lot of chatting going on before I logged in. Just finished the night. Yay. I'm glad you did. I'm super excited for the pilot, aka The Adventures of Lemon and Orange. Yeah, but I couldn't call it that because that was already a copyrighted soda title. So tonight, this is the Kickstarter sponsored spoiler stream for Cradle. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time. And I always do a launch stream for every new book that comes out. But the problem is so often, especially when I'm early in a series, there aren't like a lot of things to talk about before the next book comes out. But at the same time, I don't want to do a stream right after the book comes out, because then a lot of people haven't had a chance to finish it yet. So you would ideally have a spoiler stream a few weeks after the book comes out. So I've wanted to do that for a while, and this is the post-Cradle stream, only a year after the series ended. So, I'm right on it. I'm timely as usual. So we are going to be answering some questions about the Cradle series and about the Cradle world. Just going to be answering. It is assumed that everybody in here has read the Cradle books, and if you haven't, you should read them. Some of these things will not make a lot of sense. Just saying. I'm going to be talking, assuming that you have read the entire Cradle series. Hey, Will, can you sell me on the Captain? I will tell you what I have told everybody who asked me to sell me on one of my series. No, I cannot. I can't sell you on a series. If you don't want to read it, don't read it. No problem. I have no issue with that. Let's see. Kick things off strong. So the first thing I'm going to do. You're speaking. I asked if everybody could hear me, and someone said you're speaking in tongues. That's a solid one. That was a good one. All right. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to, if I can, this technology is newfangled and it is beyond me. I am not a technology matician. But one of the first thing we're going to try and do is we're going to try to play the trailer, the Cradle animated trailer, and I'm going to talk over it. I know most of you have seen this already, so it's not just going to be. I'm just going to give you my commentary, kind of my stream of consciousness thoughts, and some of the behind the scenes stuff as it plays. So I'm going to play that, and I'm going to talk to you about it. And mostly it's probably going to be about how we made it and where it came from. But it could be other things, because this is all going to be very stream of consciousness. So Rebecca, my technology matician. Hey, Rebecca. She's coming in. Yay.
We did it in practice, but can we do it?
Yeah, all right. Now can we do it? Here we go. Let's see.
Out.
Is this working? Are they seeing it? I might tell. Hey, we got it. All right.
The water reveals the power in your soul.
Obviously, this is the first scene of the actual Cradle series.
It will show you.
But this was
how
the first thing that when
clan.
Jay and I were talking about what we wanted to go in the trailer, this was the first thing that Jay knew he wanted to animate, was the bowl scene. He knew he wanted the trailer to open with that. So when I started, you want me to full screen? I don't know how to do that.
Huh?
Can we just go over here? I can't tab out. Can I? Did that work? Did that full screen it? All right, great. Turn Cradle music down and up your mic. You know what, guys? That's very complicated for me. Turning
Your
volume down and turning volume up.
Power.
Too much. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? You good? Audio? Okay, great. Good. That should work. I turned the volume down.
You are empty.
I'm gonna, yeah, good. All right, great.
Unsouled.
We tested this, but I don't know. So yeah, I'm getting, okay. All right, I'm gonna back this up. I'm getting so many notes. Okay, I'm gonna back this up. So here we go. So one of the first things that Jay wanted to do was he wanted to do the water scene. So when I started writing the script for the trailer, the first thing I started off was the bowl test, right? That was the first thing I was starting off. And then the second thing we did was Jay was thinking about the
Unsouled.
Jay was thinking about the scene where Lyndon's sitting on the branch just a second ago. That was like the Naruto swing scene. So that was fun. Those were some of the first things. And then I wanted to have Elder Whisper in it just because he says some of the coolest lines. All right, here we go. Yeah.
Everyone travels a path.
Yeah, this is the line.
Arts.
Okay, I'll mute it. You want to just mute it? Just mute it. All right, great, cool. Yeah, whatever. I'll just mute it. I don't care. I don't know how to do this, so we're just taking it. We're taking it one step at a time. So one of the coolest things was I wanted to do Elder Whisper, and I wanted to do Elder Whisper mainly because he has that line about everybody travels past the sacred arts except you. And so then we started working on the Elder Whisper design, and he ended up really neat and alien, which that was pretty cool. And then, of course, we have the empty palm diagram, which I just originally in the script, I just had the book showing just basically what you saw there, just showing the empty palm, and then he's practicing it. But they decided, well, let's cut to the diagram on the book right there that you just saw, just to make it a little clearer for people who don't know the series about where he's getting this move, right? And then, of course, we have the schools, and that was one of the funny things because they kept asking me for character designs for all these characters in the from the schools, and I didn't have anything for those characters. I just did for the schools. So that was kind of funny. And then when Jay was doing Leomar Kuth, he was asking me, what shape of the wings did you imagine here? And I told him, and he's like, well, what about giant dragon's wings that he can kind of knuckle around on? And of course, that was awesome. He sketched that out and showed it to me. And I was like, great. Not what I was picturing, even better. Way cooler. Was Lyndon supposed to look like Clark Kent on purpose? Yeah, 100%. That was the first note I'd said. I was like, yep, like Clark Kent. No, I'm just kidding. That's not true. No relation. He's just a big guy with black hair. And then, of course, we had this scene, which is all, the blood spewing everywhere. And that was one of the first things. One of the other things we talked about is how much gore and blood was there going to be when Lyndon gets torn in half. And of course, the artists wanted to do the full, torn in half thing. And a lot of fans did too. Oh, here we go. We get Suriel coming down. All right, I'm going to pause it. I'm going to pause it on Suriel. Yeah. So I'm going to let it play a little bit. All right. So we had a lot of questions about Suriel because, of course, she's got armor that is different than is described in the books. And obviously she's got like pointy elf ears, right? Well, a big part about Suriel is what we were trying to do with her character design is show her as an otherworldly being without having the text to do that. So in a book, you can just tell them it kind of looks otherworldly, right? In an animation, you have to really sell that with her character design. And so we were working with kind of a 90s anime style. That's another thing with the strings not being smoke and instead being white glowy lines. So we had a couple of ideas for the designs of the strings, but all of this is a good example of an adaptation of book to screen, right? The character design has to pop differently on the screen versus in the book. And it's also one of the reasons why I've never been super sold on nitty-gritty details being exactly right from the book to the show. So this person's saying the armor looks a little bit more technological and advanced organic. Yeah. And how I had sort of imagined it in the books was kind of a more magical organic style to it. But what we wanted her to do, certainly in the trailer and really in any kind of show, is we wanted to show that she's from a more advanced society. So she's clearly using magic. She's clearly using supernatural techniques. But we wanted to show that she's from a place that is more advanced. So when you do that, the way to show it quickly is have it look more technological, right? But there's still enough design to it. There's still enough that it kind of fits with the vibe of the series. And there's enough that it looks like a little ritualistic or magical, right? Isn't that cool? So that kind of thing was the sort of thing that was like, okay, that's why we wanted the design to be a little bit different. Someone else asked, why did you change the unsold symbol? Well, the unsold symbol is an actual Chinese symbol. It's a symbol in Chinese and Japanese. And it was one of those things where I did that initially when we were trying to find a symbol for the cover. I told my artist I wanted something that looked similar to Chinese, but was not Chinese. But he knew some people who spoke who were native Chinese speakers. And so he ran the actual symbol by them. And they said they would be fine. It means the right thing, right? All that. And so they checked it. And then we went, okay, well, what this does is it's going to show people that this is Asian inspired fantasy without us, because the title doesn't, right? The title doesn't necessarily convey that idea. So we thought, well, we'll put that on the cover of the first book. We didn't expect Cradle to be a huge hit and for people to be getting like tattoos and stuff of it. So we were going, okay, the first thing we're going to do as we do an adaptation is I wanted a symbol that was unique to the animation and wasn't an actual word in another language, right. So let's go ahead and move past that. So that was the idea behind changing the unsold symbol, and Jay and his team ran at it, and I liked the one we got. I thought it was super cool. All right, here we go. Boop, boop. So we're gonna go past. I lost my for full animation. Would her vision show the monarchs? Yes. All right, so this is so this this montage, which I think is the coolest part of the trailer. It only shows his actual future because this is a teaser, right? So we got Jai Long here, which is pretty neat. I think Jai Long looks cool. A little blue, kind of looking fire watery. Orthos, yeah, got some cool stuff. And then this guy, whoever that was. And then of course, I love the look on Black Flame. That was one of the things they went back to a number of times, was how cool Black Flame looked. And then I love Yaren's design here too. So, oh yeah, let me back that up. So Yaren, that was another design where, of course, we took some liberties with the book, where Jay had this idea of, let's do a kendo sort of inspired harness belt instead of just the belt that goes around her waist, right? What I was picturing is something more like Sasuke post time skip, where you have like the rope with the giant ribbon on the back. That's what I was picking. But in this case, this was something that we were looking for, something where you could see the belt in action from different angles, and it wasn't just something around her waist, and where it was a more clear and obvious element of her design, and something that also kind of fit with the swordswoman design, right? So I love that. So this is another kind of thing that, like, of course, I didn't describe it in the book as opposed, it over her neck and over her shoulders and stuff, but that I think was a great change visually. And it's another one of those things where I'm going, yeah, we had to change the little minor details in order to make her pop as Yaren on the screen, which is, I love Yaren's design. I think that was awesome. I also love that little moment of her coming in with the blood spattering on her face. So then we're going to move in. And then this was, we didn't have a voice actress for Yaren cast yet, which is why Lyndon has this line instead of Yaren. So, and then of course we have them all, walking together into the sunset as usual. Is she taller here than in the books? In that shot, yes. Or let's say she's just a little further back. So she's supposed to be shorter than Lyndon in that degree. You disappointed if you see Lyndon's Black Flame in the yeah. So the trailer was mostly for for both people who didn't know what this was, and for people who had read the books. And we felt like for people who hadn't read the books, showing this was a good idea because it gave it a taste of where the series could go, right? And for people that had read the books, of course, it's not a spoiler, right? So for people who haven't read them, it's like it doesn't give anything away. It's just cool looking. So that's the idea. Let's see. So many. Wow, there were tons and tons of questions. So anyway, so that was my kind of my thought process on the trailer. We sort of figured out how to play videos during the during things. So that was my first time trying it. So I had to figure some stuff out there. But yeah, that was those were my thoughts on the trailer. It was really cool for anybody who was at Comic-Con, being in the room debuting this with a bunch of Cradle fans. It was really neat to see people. The thing they reacted to the most was this shot right here. So it was this man showing up. That was the most audible reaction we got. There were a few other like private screenings. People reacted to Lyndon being torn in half, right? People were like, wow, you actually tore him in half. And there was a meme about that on the subreddit this week. That was cool, where it was oh yeah, they didn't show it. Oh, they did show it, right? That's a good meme. I like that. So yeah. Where will this stream? All right, this is the thing. We've said this a bunch, but I'm going to just be clear again. So what we were able to kickstart was a feature-length animatic that goes through the Unsold and Soulsmith in 90-ish minutes, right? Animatic meaning black and white, not fully animated. So that's what we could afford to animate. This was in process before the Kickstarter. We funded this with Jay and his team before the Kickstarter even started. And it was just completed. And our initial plan was to use this as promo for the Kickstarter. But one of the things we realized when we were working on this is if we get them working on another project early, we can keep the studio engaged and keep them rolling rather than them going and working on another project and then coming back once the Kickstarter funds. So in order to keep that rolling, we had to do the Kickstarter earlier. But we ended up with a cool video regardless. So we have currently funded an animatic. What we would like is to do a full series in this style. So that's what this was really a trailer for, is it's more of a trailer for what we could do if we could do a full color, fully animated project. Rebecca, you can get me off the.
Yeah, stop sharing.
Stop sharing.
I'm gonna go ahead and hit the stop sharing.
Oh, the giant stop sharing button. All right, great.
Yeah.
The button to stop sharing was the giant button that did exactly what it said. Yeah. Where are his scissors? They're in his pocket. He's hiding them. He didn't want to. He wasn't threatening anybody there. He was just sweeping. That was how he sweeps. He flicks it up onto his shoulder, and it's all swept. All right. So now I'm going to now I'm going to get into the questions. And here's one of the good things. I've already started writing the spin-off stories, the collection of the anthology stories for Cradle that we funded through the Kickstarter. And I have, because of that, I'm now very familiar. I've gotten back in the world of post Cradle, right? So I've written several stories that take place after Cradle. I'm very much in the zone. So there's a lot of these questions that I either wouldn't have been able to answer or wasn't sure if I wanted to answer or anything like that. But now I have the answers, and I know I have Cradle brain. That's exactly right. So I have a lot of familiarity with that right now. So here we go. All right. Oh, first of all, somebody in chat asked something about it. Blah, 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 blah. I would love to know more about the Abaddon, especially the original ones from Cradle. Any plans to tell their story? All right. So I have already referenced a lot of the original Abaddon stuff in some of the stories in the collection, but I haven't told like a story from their perspective or about them. And the hard part of that is, this is one of the things that's been hard about writing a bunch of short stories that are set in a universe we've already explored and that aren't in a novel, because I have to do the setup for the setting in the story itself. And it's a short story, right? So I can't just do the setup once and then have the entire rest of the book rely on that. I have to do it in each story. So every time I jump to a new time period or new setting, I have to reintroduce who everybody is and how everything is. And so the time of the original Abaddon would be so different from modern Cradle that I would have to not only figure a bunch of stuff out, but I would also have to then convey that to the audience. So what I've been trying to do instead is really kind of slip little lore tidbits into other people's stories, I guess. Yeah. So that's really what I've been doing. All right. Many questions. Many people ask the question that this kind of ties into it. Will we get a Cradle sequel? Okay. So many people ask about a Cradle sequel. I understand that. I get that. My general plan is not to promise a sequel. Right now, I am writing an anthology which does have sequel stories in it. Right. So in that sense, definitely yes. I've already written several stories that take place after Cradle. In terms of a Cradle sequel series, in the sense that you would think, probably not. Like, I'm not gonna write Cradle 2. That's unlikely. But there very well could be some stories in the future that have Cradle characters in them, or reference Cradle, or something like that. Someone's asking me what percentage of the anthology is Cradle sequel. So my intention was to do a lot of stuff before Cradle and stuff like from every book throughout the series of Cradle, and then some stuff at the end, right? And then there would be some themes that would kind of be touched on. I would get to show some things. It's almost all been out post Cradle at this point. It's all been either like taking place during Waybound or after Waybound so far. So I really ought to I really ought to write some more prequels and stuff. Someone else is asking, what platforms will this stream on? Again, we don't have a complete series. The animatic, we don't know. We don't know what it's going to stream on. Our probability is we're probably just going to put it up on YouTube, right? We don't need, so anybody can see it. That's the plan is we want Kickstarter backers to be able to see it, and then we want anybody to be able to see it. So those are our ideas. In terms of if we were able to get a series, we don't know. It depends on the negotiations. So where was I? Right. So what percentage of the final anthology will be sequels? I don't know. Right. So far of what I've written, most of it. So it'll probably be at least half. It's either taking place in Waybound and beyond, right? Because some of the stuff technically is going on. Like, so in the gap between when Linden ascends, like when everybody else ascends and Linden ascends, I've written some stuff in there. I consider that sequel material because it links to the ending stuff. So anyway, but technically that takes place during Waybound. But you know what I mean? It's post Cradle. All righty then. Can you tell us more about Ethan's wife and kids? What was he like as a husband and father? Many people ask that, including Rebecca. So that's one that I have not written this story, but it's a story that I outlined. It was I very much considered writing and still might. My idea is that Ethan was a very different person originally, right? So Osmanthus is a lot more utilitarian, a lot colder, a lot more arrogant and self-centered. So the idea would be in my thought process right now, and then kind of what I've thought before about his background is this was more of a like not exactly a political marriage, but one of those where he was doing this because he needs descendants and he needs to solidify his claim on the family. And it's a Game of Thrones style thing, right? Like he's really marrying for gain more than he is for personal attachment. And then he ends up starting to kind of get attached to this person, but then makes bad choices that lead him to being alone again, right? So that's kind of the idea, because they don't end up happily ever after because she's not around, right? So that's he leaves behind kids, so he had to have had kids at some point, and so that's that's my thought. What role would Lyndon play in League? Jungler. All right, where did the idea for remnants come from? What were some other ideas around remnants you explored before their final iteration or story involvement? Okay, where did the idea for remnants come from? Well, a couple of things. One of them is that I originally had this idea of techniques as this ended up making it in techniques as something that weren't just something you learned and practiced until you were really good at them, but something that were actually engraved into your body, right? That's something that a lot of shows and comics talk like this, but that's not actually how they work in universe. When they talk about cultivating a technique, they talk about it like you are actually feeding and growing something inside you. And so I thought, it'd be cool to have that as part of the actual magic system. And then people could get it after you died. And I thought, okay, so then how would they get it after you died? And I thought it would be cool eventually, as I played with a lot of different ideas on this. You're asking what ideas did you explore for the final? Well, I was exploring a lot about the magic system at this point. And one of the things I had thought about was doing something like totemic spirits kind of thing, like an animal or something that was inside you, represented your martial arts. And so I thought then remnants weren't necessarily your ghost so much as they were like the spirit of the concept, but more like icons, right? They're kind of the spirit of the concept that came to life when you died. And those were they had powers based on what techniques you used, right? So I did a few things like that, and I ended up liking remnants because that gives the world a very unique mechanic that's inbuilt to everything and that everything kind of revolves around, right? So that was something that I enjoyed that. And that was one of the things that I don't regret this, but one of the things that maybe if I was starting Cradle over, what I would emphasize more is how these techniques are engraved inside your soul, and the idea of taking techniques from other people and transplanting them onto yourself. And that's of course all in Cradle, but I may have emphasized that a little more. That may have been something that because it's a unique idea in the series, and I liked it. Now the series is over, what was up with the red and blue badges in the Ancestor's Tomb? The whole thing was just those are the old badges for different advancement levels. So it's different cultures have different advancement levels, different badges for different advancement levels. And the only reason, from a meta perspective, like in terms of me writing the series, I knew how many levels they would be, but I didn't know if Lyndon would need a badge for those levels or not. So I included a badge just in case he did need them. So I knew what levels they were for. I just didn't know if Lyndon was going to need a badge. And then it turns out he kind of stopped at the white badge. So I was like, okay, just leave it there. And that fit and it looked cool. So, all right. Will Osriel have to remake his mantle, or will it reform over time since it is a part of him? He will have to remake his mantle. And so for now, he does not have his mantle. And also, he's still bound by a lot of rules and agreements, because otherwise the Abaddon won't let him out, right? Like the other judges don't trust him anymore for obvious reasons. But one of the things that I'm getting to play with a little bit in the short stories, this is a little bit of a spoiler, I guess, not so much, but he's kind of playing the guy in the chair where he's stuck back in headquarters as everybody else is going out on missions, because he's only allowed out when it's very, very important. And he loves that. So that's one of the things that he just really gets to, he's super excited about it. So he's like, yeah, man, the whole universe is falling apart. So, sucks to be you guys. At least you have me. Yeah. What is Ethan's presence? That will be revealed in the short stories. All right, here we go. Oh, let's look at some chat questions. What happened to the scripted stones besides being dumped in Ghostwater? Oh, that was one of those where I had planned out this whole, and I actually wrote, I think I released this, but anyway, I wrote the whole first scene where Lyndon was getting introduced to the Aurelius family. I'm blanking. Alchemist, whatever, the refiner. Duh. I know, I know, the Aurelius family refiner. And he had the scripts, and so I have scenes of him learning scripting, and I have scenes of him learning refining, and it just was too much. I was having too little time to explore soulsmithing as it was, and so he's got to explore the new techniques. He's got to explore soulsmithing. He's got to explore refining. He's got to explore scripting. And at that point, if I really did all that, it would read a lot more like, it would just be a very different style, not even necessarily bad, just a very different direction for the series. So I think of that a lot more like something like Mother of Learning or Andrew Rose stuff, or something where they're spending a lot of time learning these different magic systems and how to apply them. And I just realized with the priorities I had, it was a lot better not to have him not spending time leveling up all these different skill sets. That's the idea. Let's see. Are there any plans to use the sizzle reel to attract investors for a full series? That'd be great. But the hard part is if we have somebody like Netflix saying, oh, yeah, we'll come in and we'll fund a series. Well, then Netflix has all the rights, and Netflix gets to tell us what's in the series and not in the series. So there's a lot of complicated back and forth to that kind of thing. But if we had the right, setup and the right deal, then yeah, we'd love to. It's a lot more about keeping creative control and a lot more about getting it out to fans. And of course, the whoever, if we did use the sizzle reel to attract somebody, they would have to be okay with us sharing the animatic out there with the backers, because we promised we'd do that. So that's not negotiable, because that's done. The dragon advances. All right. If the binding is left in the physical corpse, how can a remnant use techniques? The binding is left in the remnant. So the binding is left in the remnant. Yeah. All right. When I mentioned that earlier about the thing being engraved in your body, I was saying that was one of my original ideas for what might happen. Will Adriel make an appearance in the new book? Who knows? There are a lot of questions about that, by the way. I don't know where they are in this list, but there's a lot of Adriel questions. So Adriel, the creator, did he really exist? Did you make him up? Is it just you? Is that somebody asked, where is it? Is the existence of Adriel simply a safety feature you build in the world in case you get isekai'd? No. I build actual, like, just regular things like a regular person into the world in case I get isekai'd. That's a very real thing. And I do avoid trucks, but they can always get you. So I include in all of my series, I include things that that are under my name in case I ever get isekai'd to the universe, that I won't die immediately. So that's that's one of my secrets. And I'm no, Adriel's mantle, way beyond me. I don't want that. It's stuff to make my life easier and make it so that I don't die. Not that I take over the world. I don't want to do that. Will we ever find more about him, or was he actually a myth? Did he really exist? Yada, 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 all these Adriel questions. Yes, we will probably find out more about him, I would think. I would think so. I don't know how much I want to say about that. But yeah, there is the idea is that there definitely was a figure who did this. There was a figure who went through the void and patched together fragments to basically become the original iterations, and then went around, and every iteration he was doing a new thing, right? So there definitely was someone who did that. But whether Adriel was, as far as the people currently in the story know, that's just a name the Abaddon gave to him. They just gave him that because of their own naming conventions. So they gave him, is that really his name? Almost certainly not. But that's just kind of a legend the Abaddon applied to this figure afterwards. Delicious.
I don't know how you count that during the sip count.
The sip count? Oh, is that? I don't know. That was like a sip with really good sound effects, I think. This is something I was talking to Rebecca about a few minutes ago. Is at Comic-Con, I was on a lot of panels and interviews and stuff with actual voice actors. And so they started doing voices. And so they would like all be doing a little girl voice or an old lady voice or something, just some voice. And they would all be doing it. And I'm like, I'm not going to do the chain ends with me because I'm not about to do a voice in front of actual voice actors. Like that's not going to happen. I'm sitting next to Morla and she's doing a little girl voice. And I'm like, it felt like it was my turn, but I'm like, no, I'm not doing a little girl voice next to a real voice actor. Is Zoris actually dead? Yes, she is. You don't need to read and find out at all. Will we learn more about the other planets and moons in Cradle? I think somebody asked that before, or you did. So will we learn more about the maybe? I'm thinking about doing a moon. I thought about doing a moon story. Yeah, I thought about doing a moon story. The problem is Andrew Rowe already did like a fan fiction moon story, and I thought it was really funny. So I don't want to I didn't want to do an official version because I just think his is good and it was funny. So yeah, why is Yeah, exactly. Why is Osriel the only judge to appear in 2 series? Timing. How do Cradle power levels compare to the Abaddon? That will be very thoroughly refocused. That will be very thoroughly explored in the short stories. Isn't the moon destroyed? No, the moon is not destroyed. The moon is wounded, which is indeed referenced in the short stories. So the moon now has a big jagged scar on it, which is kind of fun. One of the things I've always wanted to do, and you can't really do this outside of like a visual medium. You can't do this in books so much. But I always wanted to do something like in Soul Eater, where the moon is like a laughing little guy. It's like an evil face. I always wanted to do stuff like that, where it's like, yeah, it doesn't make any sense in the context of an actual moon, but I just thought it'd be fun. All right. With Lended Ascended, was the Dread God armor better than Abaddon armor? Yes. How did they better than basic Abaddon? So most of the Abaddon we've seen so far have been judges. And so one of the things we get to see in the short stories, and I get to explore, which is really fun, is how monarchs stack up against lower level Abaddon, which is generally speaking, and in contact in combat, really well. So you get to most people from most of the monarchs, most people from Cradle who ascend are not monarchs, right? They're archlords or sages or heralds. So they're still known as, they go straight to the wolf division and they get the training, and they're usually like really good wolves, which are the fighters of the Abaddon. So then when a bunch of monarchs ascend all at once, the Abaddon are like, oh crap, these people are from Cradle. And so that's I got to do some fun stuff with that. That was fun. And then monarchs very immediately are better at fighting than most low-level Abaddon, right? Like they're just better at it. That's what they do. That's what Cradle's known for. The advantage of using like way-based techniques, using the way and drawing on them for the different Abaddon techniques, is the way adds like extra authority behind what you do, and the way is a lot more absolute, but it still strains you, right? Like so for instance, if you're not using way techniques or something equally good, and the Titan puts up a way-powered minding, like that's locking you out of somewhere, and you're trying to break through it, you can't until that person falters, right? You can't break the technique. You have to break the person using the technique. So they're going to put up an indestructible shield, but they can only hold that shield for so long because they themselves are not great. It's different if you're a judge. So the Gadriel, the Titan judge, can hold that shield forever, right? That's his thing. He's going to sit there. You're not going to break a shield. You're just not going to do it. So that's the kind of idea you're working with. So, but yes, a little 1-star Titan can barely hold the shield. So then a monarch's going to come up and they're going to be able to block an attack or two, and then they're going to get overwhelmed by the superior monarchs. So that's the idea. How do they gain Madra after ascending? Oh, that's interesting. I'm not sure if I've dealt with that in the stories yet. Yeah, I'll have to bring that up in the story. So I have an answer for it. I just don't know. So they can still get aura off of Cradle. But that's what's one of the things that's kind of interesting is they can get it, but other people can't. So it's one of those that's like, yeah. So it's another multiverse compatibility thing where I'm trying to do the icons of the big multiverse compatibility mechanic, the icons and authority. But there are ways to continue cultivating different magic systems even off of where they originate. So you can use artifacts from that world. There's other sources of aura even outside of Cradle. But other people can't use them because they didn't grow up in Cradle. They don't have sacred arts, all that stuff. Is a story from the perspective of the Roshir a possibility? Yes, there is very real possibility. I've outlined one. I haven't written it yet, but all right. Here we go. What? This is another question we got a couple of times. Which characters from the Cosmere would Ethan get along with, and which ones he wouldn't? All right, so that's too many to list, but I can go. I can tell you right now. You probably knew, and the whole reason, yeah, the whole reason you asked this question is Hoyd. He would get along well with Hoyd. It's there's a lot of, it's another dimension jumping, planet jumping, whatever, and dimension jumping. The Jester character, mentor. Yeah, that's obviously they'd get along. They'd get along well. Which ones would he not get along with? Probably most of the others. That's what is Ethan's presence like? Yeah, you got to read and find out. That's one where I don't want to spoil that. But yeah, that does show up in the short stories. So in the post Cradle short stories, it is going to show up. I promise. What did Osmanthus do that he felt he needed to make penance for? Should I answer that or not? Yeah, okay. All right. So I'm gonna answer that because it might be in the stories. I'm not sure yet. I was kind of up in the air about that. So what did Osmanthus do that he felt like he needed to make penance for? The idea, one of my original ideas for that, and of course I could change my mind until I have it in a book, but my original thought is he was trying to make weapons to protect people, and they ended up getting abused, which we talked about that in the series. That came up in the series. And so then he was now trying to go, okay, great. In penance, what I'm going to do is make a weapon so perfect that I can get rid of everybody I don't like, right? Like so he felt like what he was doing was making up for letting people abuse these weapons by then making a weapon that effectively can't be abused because he's going to have the ultimate, just by using it, he's going to end the conflict. So that was kind of the idea. So it's he's going to make the stronger weapon as penance for making two strong weapons, right? It's a bad, I can set it up more nuanced than that, and I will, but the idea is this is a bad idea, right? Like he should not be doing this. So so he's making penance. It's not a good ending. Because remember, Osmanthus does not have a good ending. He does not, what he's doing, you shouldn't do. And Ethan doesn't want to do. So another idea I had in relation to that cycle is that as he's making this absolute weapon, that is one of the things that gets the attention of the Abaddon and kind of ends up forcing him to ascend, because he's researching the original Abaddon and making an absolute weapon that taps into the way. And that's like, whoa, that's way beyond his pay grade, huh? So that's the idea. All right. Hi, Will, and whoever else reads this. Hi, Brian. What happens to the Twin Star sect? I don't know who this is, but it kind of looks like their name is probably Brian, so I'm just going to guess. What happens to the Twin Star sect in the immediate centuries following Lyndon's ascension? In the immediate centuries. I'm not sure I'm going to go that far. Rebecca comes in with the Twin Star shirt. Yeah. In the immediate centuries following Lyndon's ascension, do they cement their positions, etc.? And also, does the gang ever come back to Cradle for holiday? I don't know if I should tell the truth on this. The truth is, I'm torn. I'm not sure. So I left it open, the possibility. So torn about the holiday thing. I know what happens in the Twin Star sect, but the holiday thing is, I tore it. I was torn on this because I'm not sure. I left open the possibility that the Reapers could visit Cradle. Right. I left open that possibility. They could visit, but they can't do too many changes. But I also left open the possibility that they won't be allowed to do that. But I think they probably will, just how many restrictions are going to be on them. That's my thought. And I had left that open intentionally because I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have to flesh out the actual situation in the Abaddon to make sure it makes sense. But I want them to be able to visit Cradle but not to be able to like come back and rule, because obviously they can't do that. But yeah, come back for Christmas break, right? Yeah, exactly. So they're gonna come back and they're gonna do the Cradle Christmas special. All right. Blah, 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 blah. How do the main cast of Cradle stack up against each other at the end of the series? Ethan, way up here, off the scale. Top of the scale, Lyndon. Middle of the scale, Zeal and Mercy and Urine. Under them, Little Blue and Orthos. There it is. That's it. There you go. Okay, that was pretty straightforward. Okay, where did Ethan get his bloodline ability from? All right, he had a bloodline ability, like that. His family had a bloodline ability. It's just that only with him did it then become like a really good bloodline ability. Like obviously it's a very good one now. And so after him, he strengthened it. He was so great that then he took it up a notch. And there it is. Is the Abaddon way the only way? Could the Vroshir be onto something? The Vroshir could be onto something. The Abaddon way is most definitely not the only way. And there are pros and cons to the way they do it, and there are pros and cons to the way the Vroshir do it. The main difference that makes the Abaddon sort of the good guys, more of the good guys, and the Vroshir more of the bad guys, is the Abaddon really are, and generally speaking, doing this because they think it is genuinely better for the multiverse. And the Vroshir ultimately are out for themselves. So that's that's really the difference. It's not like method wise, the Vroshir method could totally work, and the Abaddon method could work a lot better. But the Abaddon have become lost sight of their original goal, and the Vroshir are too selfish. So that's the bottom line, stated very plainly. Are there other multiverse bubbles on the other side of chaos? Maybe. All right, here we go. Could the newly founded Reapers eventually go into Asylum to get rid of the Great Elders? Technically, yes, they could. And that is one of those things that the Reapers actually would be good for. The problem is the Great Elders are very, very, very strong. So this is one of those things where the whole reason they are locked in the world in the first place is because you have to have Azrael or somebody on his level to deal with these guys. Other than that, even a regular judge, you drive them away. You don't really kill them. You don't get rid of them. So they're all locked in Asylum because that's better than killing them, because we can't. It's very difficult to do so. So they're out of Lyndon's league. Now, what Lyndon could do, if he could do this without destroying the entire world of Asylum, is go in there and fight them in that world. He would be very useful for that and potentially stave off an apocalypse there. But then he would just drive them into the void, at which point they would be immensely more powerful and they would eat Lyndon alive. So that's the idea.
Oh, I picked that question and I did not expect that answer. I like that answer. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anytime. Is Lyndon part of the Abaddon, or is he just traveling the multiverse? They are associated with the Abaddon. So they're considered the Reaper division, which is kind of like an 8th semi-official division. And that conflict is actually a big part of what I'm dealing with in the stories that are set in the Abaddon. And what it really is the thing that kind of made me want this to do this as a novel versus short stories, because setting up that conflict has been something I've had to do in a number of short stories now, and I don't want to keep setting it up. I want to keep going back to it. But it's been fun. It's been fun to play with. I really enjoyed it. Okay, more stuff. Will there ever be a Cradle and Last Horizon crossover story? I can't say never. I can't say never to anything. One of the things that people have always asked me about since I started doing the multiple world stuff, which began with Elder Empire, is, are you going to do an Avengers style team up thing at the end? And I've never really wanted to do that on the one hand, because I don't want to give people, I'm already at 24 books, you guys. Like, that's too many books. It's too many books. So I don't want people to have to read 30 books to even start the series. On the flip side, I've never read anyone who just really done that, and I would like to do that with fantasy novels. Obviously, that's a pretty common thing in comics and other mediums. But I've never read a novel series where they really did that, where they had their multiple series, then have a big like Avengers team up, and that would be really cool. So that tempts me. And I have some, it's like I have some ideas that would work, but it's like, anyway. So I'm not promising anything, but I'm also not saying no. However, main Craft of Cradle crossover with The Last Horizon. No, because I'm just going to leave The Last Horizon unfinished. I'm just going to leave 3 books out, and then I'm going to vanish. I think that's it. I think I'm just going to go and disappear into the mountains for the next 10 years. I think that's probably the actual answer. Oh, is it break time? Yeah, it is. 6:45. Okay. I'll do one more. Was the 8-man empire armor or path created by the founding members of the Abaddon prior to their ascension? If not, will we ever learn more about the history and mechanics of the 8-man empire? I actually really wanted to do, I had a real idea of a Larian short story that was Larian kind of tying up her issues on Cradle and then ascending. So it might cover it in that, but I haven't written it yet, so I don't know. But anyway, the actual answer to your question is no, the Abaddon didn't make it. It was something that some people on Cradle made to try and address the hunger Madra issue. That was indeed what it was for. And it works. I mean, it allows them to do that without building up hunger madra. So it's an effective solution. It's just not a super elegant one because effectively you're sharing power, and it's a finite amount of power, and it's not perfectly efficient. So you're pulling from different things. So they can do a lot of things. They're still effectively an opposition for any one or two monarchs, but it's not quite as good as ascending to monarch, right? So anyway, like 8 actual monarchs would be better. So all right. Yes, I'm gonna leave. Okay, so my foot is still broken, so I'm hobbling from this chair to a wheelchair.
Hobbling to the wheelchair. Good luck.
Hobble.
Don't hurt yourself.
All right.
I'm so glad we put that boot on you. That was a good idea. Hello, everyone. First of all, we had definitely over 300 questions submitted on the poll before this live stream because some people did like a comment with a million questions, which was super fun. So Sam went through initially, and we tried to make sure for everyone who submitted multiple questions that we picked at least one of yours. So I know Will's going through, but I flagged some of them for the ones that I wanted to answer, or I just thought I could answer. First of all, does Ethan mew? And I just really appreciate that as someone who has gotten way too deep into TikTok over this past year. Because absolutely, Ethan mews. Are you kidding me? That guy knows every modeling technique. That guy knows every TikTok trend. He is having TikTok up while he is watching like every single person he has his eyes on. Anyway, yes, he would pose and he would just be the greatest in any picture. He is picture ready at all times. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions. That was super fun. I did want to give some updates. Many of you have gotten your Kickstarter books for 4 through 6. Yay, those are shipping. If you do have any problems, you can email Mike at kickstarter@willwhite.com and he will help get everything sorted. But 4 through 6 for everyone should be coming to you within the next month. And because we are getting ready to wrap that up, we are close to kicking off our next Kickstarter for the special editions for 7 through 9. I have to run through the numbers every time in my head. Anyway, so we have ordered proofs copies of those. So we're hoping to see them soon. And it's going to be great. So yay, 7 through 9. I took notes. I was not expecting to be on here alone. Stupid Sam had to go and get a stomach bug because Comic-Con really cursed us all. I'm just going to look through the chat really quick. Love your earrings. Thank you. These were every year for Christmas. Okay, let me see if this is going to work. It's not going to work. I got little unsold book earrings. Every year for Christmas, I get everyone on our team or associated with our Hidden Gnome team who has pierced ears a pair of earrings. And I've been doing gnome earrings. So pretty much if someone on Etsy sells gnome earrings, you can be pretty confident that I have purchased them. But this year I was like, we have too many pairs of gnome earrings and I've got to cool it. So I was like, what other book related thing could I do? And on TikTok, I saw someone doing something like this. And I was like, somebody on Etsy can do this for our book. And so I looked it up and was able to order a bunch for our team. Yay! Cool. Okay. Also, animation Kickstarter updates. We will have our next reward is going to be for digital behind the scenes content. So we are working on putting that together. We're kind of figuring out now, how to do that balance between behind the scenes content that everyone should get and that everyone wants to know versus what is that content that is really a higher level for what everyone's for those that paid a higher amount. Oh, this is the mug up. Mom's coming into support. Come say hi, Mom. Yay. Mom came. She was not supposed to be here. And then Sam's sick and I'm sick and Will's injured. So she drove down today to help. This is the mug I was drinking out of. But then by the time I came on, it was out of hot water. So Dross had gone away. Yay. I love that I'm showing merch that you can no longer buy on our store because they stopped selling them. So we're hoarding them. That was too hot to sip just there. Good times. Okay. Animation rewards. So we are figuring out what some of that behind the scenes content, but we have wrapped up our voice recording for the animatic, which is so exciting. So we finished that this week. Really cool. So we have a lot of behind the scenes voice recording content. They recorded the directors, Jay Leva, and the producers, like meeting when they were doing the initial conversations regarding like the initial script review and some of the storyboarding plans. So they have a lot of that content recorded. And of course, we have a lot of different versions of like Will's scripts and different ideas there. So anyway, that's pretty fun. Yeah, I'm gonna go back now to look at some other questions. A lot of people saying hi mom, Mother White. Mother White, I feel like is how we need to refer to her. Yeah, I am a monster for sharing a Dross mug that you can't buy. There are other Dross mugs available. They're just not the magical color changing ones. Is Hidden Gnome a family business? Yes, ish. It's a lot of family. Our whole family is in this business. He has bought us all out. All of our immediate family is now in the business. All 5 of us. But we have 5 other people on our team. I don't know if that number is right. We have about 5 other people on our team who are not family. So if you interact with Mike, he's running our Kickstarters. His wife is our bookkeeper and accountant and has been on the team longer than he has. Maria is the employee who's been around the longest, and she is not a part of our family. So we've got a whole team, and then we have Patrick and Lily in our Canadian gnomes who help us with Ingram, and Patrick's our artist and graphic designer. So yeah, is full cast announcement coming up? Yes, it will be coming up soon. The map is almost done, you guys. It's so good. It's so great. I did not think I was that excited for a map until I started getting drafts of it. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm kind of glad to have a map. And then as it's gotten further along, I've been getting more and more excited. And I just saw we had the final review recently, and it looks so good. I can't wait, because we have on our wall, we have this one spot where we have the map from Traveler's Gate, which at this point until now was the only one of his series with a map. And we got like a shadow box with it printed on leather, hand on leather, where it's like a physical printing thing. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, we have it in a shadow box on our wall. And I was like, Will needs to get a map for each of the series so we can have each of these on the wall, because that would be super cool. So I can't wait to get this. And we're already having to go see if we're going to use, go find that contact for the person who made it so that we can get another shadow box of the Cradle map on our wall. And the artwork is almost done for the final Cradle collection. I know some people have been waiting a while for that. So that artist had an injury earlier this year, and that slowed up a little bit of her art. But she is the artist who does both the Cradle collection covers and the character art for the Kickstarter special edition. So that's really exciting. So she's been working on art for the Kickstarters and the Cradle collection cover. So that is really exciting, and it looks super good. I'm very excited. All right, what other questions? When is Will going to answer for polluting the Atlantic Ocean with so many laptops during his cruises? Some atrocities can never be accounted for. But the truth is, we have a system that is so foolproof now, that involves so much duct tape from our super redneck father, that not a single laptop has been lost to the depths of the ocean, which is really an amazing feat, considering how often Will writes perched on the deck of a cruise ship with a table, standing up with a laptop on a laptop stand. It's really astounding stuff here. We are a top-notch organization over here. Are there going to be other authors that publish through you guys, or are you just going to be family? We are definitely open into publishing other authors. But we just want it to be through kind of the realm of relationships. We want to get to know somebody, and we want to be able to openly work with them the way we openly work through Will. So there's a lot of different philosophies behind publishing companies. It took a long time for us to figure out what we wanted to do, and if we did want to be open to other people. But the most important thing to us is we want to help people. So a lot of times people contact us, and we're able to give them advice on self-publishing and send them on their way. And that's really great. But we are definitely open in the future to working with other artists. We're talking to a couple artists now that Will's kind of helping mentor, and some of them are just his friends, and some are other people we've encountered. So anyway, yeah, that's Hidden Gnome's take on authors. I'm going to regret that when I listen back to it, because I probably did not say words well. Words are hard, guys. I'm not the word goblin here. So just be careful listening to me when I talk because words are hard. Will you guys notify us the exact moment a studio wants to take on Cradle? No. First of all, because I'm the contract person and I'm the person who immediately hears an idea and thinks of everything wrong with it. So it has to get past me getting comfortable with it before you're going to hear about it, which means it has to get through a contract negotiation process. But yeah, that's pretty much always going to be my answer. But the truth is, there's so much nuance to all of this. Will did a great job answering earlier that the awesome part of the animatic and working with Lex and Otis is they have been so clear since the very beginning. And this has just been proven true again and again is Jay and Lex and Otis, their heart is about taking a project from a creator and bringing it to life without changing what it is, because they're just massive fanboys. Like they're massive fans of so many things, and they've been burned before by IP they love that's been adapted screen and been changed from what it is. So they have been wonderful to work with, and that's what we want from any investors or streamers or studios that pick up Cradle, is that they have that same heart, or that we are able to maintain control so that we can make sure the story and the characters don't change. A lot of the little details have to change when you're adapting to a new medium, but we're having lots of conversations with Lex and Otis, and yeah, it's been great. So speaking of that, we were at Comic-Con last week. That was amazing. It was really cool to see a couple of cosplayers come out and to be able to debut the trailer in front of an audience. It was so cool. And then we got to do a signing, and turns out Comic-Con had some of Will's books for sale, which we did not know was going to happen. So that was really fun. A couple of people went and were able to go buy a book and get Will to sign it. We were able to give away signed versions of the posters that have been made for the Kickstarter, of which there is a second poster in development exclusively for the Kickstarter backers. So I've got an original concept art for that right now. And now Will is coming back.
Slowly.
Okay, slowly coming back. We're going to slowly shuffle. I'm stepping out.
Yeah.
You made it.
I'm hobbling.
Now scooch.
Got to hobble from chair to chair. So the thing was, I have a wheelchair over there, and initially they were just gonna like wheel me up to the keyboard, but like I can't get past my desk, and the desk itself is a standing desk, so I can get it up enough for me to wheel under it. But then of course the camera moves, so I just kind of instead just sort of hopped, just sort of hopped. If a billionaire were to contact you and offer to fund a full series and you get to keep creative control, how long do you think that would take if accepted? Yikes. That's a question for Jay. The real answer is, if somebody just dumped me a bunch of money and was like, hello, Rebecca, and was like, you can do whatever you want, I just want to make sure that you get a series. It still takes at least a year for, I mean, really probably a year and a half. I think that's as quick as it gets. So I think that is true. Okay, so I wrote down some of the questions I saw in the comments as I was stalking while I was gone, and I saw a few. One of them was about the map, and Rebecca answered that one, so I heard that. I also saw people somebody asked several times, the Titan and the Phoenix, they are both judges and dread gods. Was that intentional? Yes, it absolutely was, because the Abaddon come from Cradle. So the dread gods get formed that way and get named that way because these are iconic animals, iconic figures in Cradle mythology, and that's why the judges are named that too. So they come from the same mythology. So that's because they both come from Cradle. So that is the reason. Otherwise, I would have named them differently. And then someone else, you guys said Bleach connection to some people pulled out the Bleach connection to Abaddon, where it was like Suriel's unleashing her razor and like she's saying Bankai, and there was a lot of Bleach influence on the original design of the Abaddon court. So not so much now, but when I came back to writing Cradle after having not written it for a long time, I was having real trouble not saying captain and lieutenant for the Abaddon squads instead of judges. I was having real trouble not saying captains. But yeah, so there definitely was some Bleach influence there. Could there be a third faction out there besides the Abaddon and the Vroshir? Yes, definitely, mainly because the Vroshir, the big ones stick together, but they're, generally speaking, it's just like a blanket term the Abaddon use. So it's more like Vroshir are people who hop from world to world and take magic systems from multiple worlds without authorization. That's kind of just what a Vroshir is. So there's a lot of, it's like calling them bandits, right? Like that's just what they call them, right? So did Aurelia actually exist? No, just a myth. Okay, now back to the scripted questions. We already did the 8-Man Empire one. Someone asked, What would happen to Lyndon if Little Blue or Orthos died? And the answer I have written in here is Rebecca would cry and hit Will. So I think I can guess where that answer came from. What would happen to Lyndon if Little Blue or Orthos died? Rebecca would hit Will. All right. I don't like that answer. I don't want to get hit. What would happen to Lyndon? The real answer is it would hurt a lot. It would be the spiritual injury, and it would be difficult because he would then it's just like a Wheel of Time when a water bond breaks, if you guys know what that means. Someone who was connected to his soul is now gone, which would be very difficult to deal with psychologically. So that's really the big, in terms of impact on his power level, virtually none. If Lyndon and Fury actually had a tiny fight at the end of Waybound, who wins? And is it Lyndon because of his sweet nude trip? Lyndon dripping for real. Look, someone else is asking, will we ever get a Lyndon versus Fury fight? There is a Fury fight in the story, but it is not, but it is not against Lyndon. So that's Lyndon has a fight, Fury has a fight, but I have not written a Lyndon versus Fury fight, and I'm not sure if I will. We'll see. Lyndon wins at that point. And so right after Ascension, Lyndon wins. Now, eventually there's a real possibility that Fury could win when he learns more to use wolf techniques. So if he learn to use like the wolf abilities from the Abaddon are all about combat, and they're all about reinforcing your own combat ability. So with those, it's possible that Fury could win. But right after Ascension, Lyndon wins. Lyndon's cheating in all sorts of ways. Wait, are we getting more Cradle? Yes, we are. And I heard somebody else ask, what is the difference between an animatic, which I have answered before, and I will answer again. This fight is post-Waybound. Yes, it is. So an animatic is black and white and not fully animated. It's just the key poses of the characters going from one to one through an entire movie-length story. That was all we could afford to illustrate. Then someone else asks, are we getting more Cradle? Yes, we are. So from the Kickstarter hit enough of a stretch goal that we were able to get a short story collection that takes place mostly after Cradle. Now, it also takes place some during Cradle, some well before Cradle, so on and so forth. So they're effectively just extra Cradle short stories. But yeah, and I'm writing them. I'm a little less than halfway through writing those. All right. The books are very mean to Pride about his lack of height. Nope. The books are very mean to Pride as a way of ragging on Pride. And he himself is just a short guy. Who's taller, Will or Sam? Sam's taller than me. So Sam is like half an inch or an inch taller than I am. No, he's a little bit taller than me. Yeah, not too much. He's a little taller. It could also be his hair. He's not losing his hair like I am. It's the hair. It could be. It's like 3 inches of hair. It's like Johnny Bravo. All right. Was Jylong originally planned to join Lyndon's team like Zeal when he was first conceived? No, Jylong was never originally intended to join Lyndon's team. Jylong was never going to join Lyndon's team. Jylong was always going to be effectively what he was, which is a secondary character. However, I did have some designs to potentially have Jai Chen as part of the team, but then Mercy sort of ended up fulfilling that role. So, yep. Last Horizon Book 4 release date, unknown at this point. It was originally going to be the book I worked on next, but because of the animatic and the Comic-Con and all this stuff was coming up this month, instead of working on that, I've been working on the Cradle short story collection. So instead, that's going to come out next instead of the pilot. Threshold length, probably about 90,000 words, maybe 100,000, 90 to 100, somewhere in there. That's the idea. How's the leg? Sucks. But it is getting better. It is the leg is in pain, but it is getting better. It's healing for sure. All right. Have you considered writing a legacy sequel of Cradle, like his children or his children's children picking up the torch? Despite the epilogue flash forward at the end of Waybound, no, I have not. So that is, I don't want to do that. I don't usually like those very much. I think there are ways to do them well. I think there are definitely things I would do if I were to write a legacy sequel. So I have theories about it. There's some things, some noodling in my brain, but generally speaking, so like The sequel comic to Solo Leveling just got translated into English. So the sequel novel has been coming out for a while, and I didn't really like it. But I didn't really like the original Solo Leveling novel either. I only liked the comic. So until it came out in English, I wasn't really going to judge the story. And now that the comic is out in English, and it does have the traditionally awesome art, so it's really good, coming out in English. Very, very, very cool. Looks awesome. The story's not very good. I don't like it very much. So I'm not a big fan of it, because it's picking up where with the son of the previous main character. And instead of, the first thing I'm going is, okay, now how do you distinguish this guy from the previous main character, right? Like, how do you distinguish him from his dad? And the answer is they didn't. They kind of just sort of went with, let's make it exactly the same as the previous guy. So instead of him leveling up to gain power, he's leveling up to regain the power that he had at birth. So it's like, okay, but that's the same. That's the same thing. He's even going through the same encounters. So anyway, you got to be different enough from the previous guy, but at the same time, you've also got to have something to yourself. Same thing with Boruto. You had the really good opportunity to reset things back to where they were in Naruto prior to all the alien nonsense. And then what they did was they injected the alien nonsense right back in immediately. So they just doubled down on the alien nonsense. And so it's like, okay, so it's just like Naruto, but worse. So yeah, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. But there are ways I would think, I have strong opinions about it, obviously. So there'd be ways, if I did choose to do that, I would do it a little differently. So I'd do my best, but I don't know. Anyway, what is Ethan's presence? It's the third Ethan's presence question. I promise I'm gonna get it. It's in the short story. I've already written it. It's there. I swear. Did Lyndon, Yaren, or Zeal develop a bloodline ability at Monarch? They won't know until they have kids. So that's the thing, is they themselves have the ability. It's an ability they have, but they didn't. You don't just like develop a normal. You don't develop a new ability that gets added. It's an ability you have that becomes signature to you, and then you pass it on to your kids. So that's the idea. It's one of the reasons why Charity has Malice's bloodline ability, even though Fury doesn't. So it skipped him, because in between Fury growing up and Fury having Charity, Malice developed that bloodline. So she developed that bloodline ability, and then all of a sudden, all of her descendants develop it. So it's not exactly a genetic thing. It's a spiritual thing. So yeah. So so maybe they did. Zeal does pass it. Yes, Zeal passes on. That's Zeal's bloodline ability is depression. Yeah. The glass is always half empty. Will we hear about any Osmanthus in the short stories? Yes. All right. Were all dread beasts killed or reverted to normal by the time Lyndon ascended? No, most of them were just killed. They don't like automatically die or get healed when the dread gods do. They're still there. They're still out there. They're still sources of hunger Madra. They just will not continue to be created. Like there won't be new dread beasts born. So eventually they will all die out. Did Lyndon leave behind a Soulsmith inheritance and or dream tablets meant to help others advance along his paths? What a great question. That's my favorite question so far. Yes, he did. So he left behind some materials to the Twin Star sect to help them develop when he was gone. So that is he did do that.
He didn't leave him with like Emers's network.
Maybe he did. I didn't say that. Yeah. But yeah. So that is something that he did do. In the trailer. Oh, so someone's asking what other sources of hunger Madra are out there. What I'm saying is these dread beasts, these creatures that were created from hunger aura, now have hunger Madra inside them. That doesn't just go away just because the dread gods die, right? Like whatever was in them is still there, and they can still feed it. They can still so if Lyndon wasn't where he was and was just like, let's say it was Skysworn or Ghostwater level Lyndon, and he had the hunger arm, he would still be able to feed using that hunger arm and develop that hunger arm even after the dread gods are dead. So the hunger aura just is no longer naturally, like it no longer occurs, right? So there won't be any new dread beasts. There won't be any new, so they will stop doing that. So but they don't go away. They don't disappear. It's not like a movie where all the minions, like it's like in Lord of the Rings, where all of Mordor crumbles, the movies after Sauron's beaten. All right. In the trailer, Suriel seems to show a future where Lyndon joins Yaren and Orthos. Oh, yeah. Okay, we talked about this earlier. Yeah. So the trailer shows the actual future of the series instead of the monarchs. That is not what's going to happen in the animatic. That is not what would happen if we went to series. That is That is purely a trailer mechanic. It's the you take the thing where Shuriel's like, hey, go see a vision, and then we cut in what is actually going to happen in the series, not what Lyndon is actually seeing. So it's not going to work like that. That's just a cool thing to do in a trailer. Will the characters from Cradle be featured in future books you write? Potentially. I can't promise anything, but potentially. What happens to all the people on Dread God cult paths now that the Dread Gods are gone? That will be dealt with. That's actually, we explore that pretty decently. That there's a story that is pretty significantly about the Red Moon Hall people after the Dread Gods are gone, after Yeren's gone and all that. But the actual answer is similar to what I just said about the Dread Beast, right? Like their Madra still works. So it doesn't just stop working. So they can still do that. And potentially they could even abuse Hunger Madra to the point that they became a threat similar to the Dread Gods. However, that's what the 8-man empire is there for. That's what Lyndon left things behind for. So there's plans in place for that. What themes it's hard to read this. What themes or tone are you going for with The Last Horizon? I'm not sure how to answer that. To explain further, in Cradle, 2 major themes were improve yourself and stick with your friends even as you grow. Okay. How do those themes compare to the themes of The Last Horizon, and what goes into how you choose themes for the story? Oh, this is interesting. Okay. So that's theme questions are always interesting because themes are things that you do have in mind when you're writing, or at least you should have in mind some idea of what is behind what you're writing. However, you don't need to have them in mind to the same degree that people think. Like when you watch a YouTube video, they boil it down to very clear themes. They're like, oh, they're dealing with a theme of this. They're dealing with a theme of this. There's a lot of themes that you can find. Themes are something you find after the story is written, right? Like themes are something you come in later and you go, it had this theme, these themes, these themes, these themes. So one other theme in Cradle is what it means to be disabled, or means to be exiled from your community, or what it means to be, however you would want to put it, something that means to be what it means to be an outsider, what it means to be rejected, what it means to be. So of course, Lyndon then finds out, wait, he's actually wasn't, everybody considered him unsold, but that's actually not a real thing at all. But it was real and it affected his life because they believed it was, right? So that theme continues throughout all of Cradle. It's how Lyndon reacts to it, how other people react to doing this in different ways. And we end up finding out at the end of the series that even the monarchs are driven by their unhealthy feelings and their incorrect conceptions about how reality works. And that's what's causing all the problems in the entire world. So that's another theme, right? Like that's another thing that keeps coming up. So you can find these themes in stories afterwards because they sort of, as long as the story is coherent, it will have themes. So I think one of the things that a lot of new writers do is they feel like they have to have their themes figured out before they begin writing. They got to go, I've got to make sure I know exactly what themes I'm dealing with before I start. And you can't really do that. You should have some idea of what story you're writing and why. And because of that, then if you understand the story and you understand who you're writing it for and why, your themes will be consistent, even if you don't like sit there on a whiteboard and go, I'm dealing with this theme and this theme and this theme and this theme. Having said all that, in The Last Horizon, therefore, there are themes. One of the main themes I think in The Last Horizon that comes up, and again, these are things that you sort of discover when you're reading the book, not so much as you're writing it. But one of the themes of The Last Horizon is no matter how much power you have, you still have problems. So that's one of the themes of it. There's a lot of things like that, themes that along those lines, is these are people who have the power to solve all these external problems, but it doesn't solve the internal problems they have. And indeed, there are always going to be external problems, regardless of how strong you are. So that kind of thing. I think themes along those lines. There's also some themes of how he deals with the same people from life to life and how that changes and how his relationships change depending on his context, and how your memory of your life changes and how it changes how you relate to other people. So there are some themes like that, but you can pull out a lot of themes from a lot of stories as long as they're coherent. All right, here we go. Will you adopt me? No, but nice try. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? I don't know, but I know what my least favorite is, and it's chocolate. I love chocolate. I do not like chocolate ice cream. I don't like chocolate ice cream. I don't understand it. Yes, less than vanilla. The vanilla ice cream's fine. I usually put vanilla ice cream on things. I just don't. I don't eat like a plain bowl of vanilla ice cream. But I love chocolate. I just don't like chocolate ice cream. Doesn't taste like chocolate. It tastes like chocolate ice cream. So when it's like brownie fudge ice cream or something, I'm like, great. I like brownies like fudge. There's chunks of brownies and fudge in this. Really good. But anyway, so yes. What's your real identity? I can neither confirm nor deny that this is not my real identity. And legally speaking, my lawyer has advised me not to answer that question. What did you do last night at 11:43? That's immensely tied to my real identity, so I can't answer that. I will say, if you think you saw me across the Mexican border last night at 11:43, that was not me, because I definitely was here, and my foot is definitely broken. I won't prove it, but it's true.
Here's a really important question in the chat.
Okay. Where do you get cool support? You got to take mine. You got to borrow them. So that's they're the only cool supportive siblings. I have both of them. So there's only two and I have them both. So you got to borrow them. I'll lend them to you for a while. Not forever, but like you can borrow them. Sometimes I got to catch them while I'm reading. Somebody's asking what happened with North Strider. I can't help but picture Namor whenever I think of North Strider. No, he did not inspire North Strider whatsoever. I have nothing but disdain for the character of Namor. I have strong opinions on these things, dang it. I know. This is hard. So this is one of the hard things about talking about things that I like or am passionate about on stream is I don't. All right, I'm going to cut to this because somebody asked, is teleporting a valid superpower choice? Teleporting is the valid superpower choice. I love teleportation that's what a practical power in real life. Anyway, so I have strong opinions on these things, and I don't like officially voicing too much criticism of these of other things, even though I think it's valid. A lot of times I have a lot of criticisms of things I love. Like I was crapping on Naruto earlier. I love Naruto. It's one of my favorite stories. And so I don't personally feel anything wrong with it, but I know when I go on stream and I say critical things, it leads people to start talking negative. And I don't want that. I want people to be positive. I want people to be free to enjoy things. So I don't like going too negative, but I hate Namor, man. I don't like him. I've never liked him. I don't like him in the comics. Certainly didn't like what they did with him in the movie. I don't like the character. He's worse Aquaman with wings on his ankles. He looks so stupid. And I know there are Namor fans out there. I don't know if we have like Namor's #1 fan in this chat, but Will, have you read Worm? Yes, of course. Yes. Yes, read all of Worm. I read a meme on the Worm subreddit of like 5 minutes before this stream started. And it was a meme about how the best Worm fan fictions are written by people who've never read Worm. And I, for the life of me, do not understand why Worm has such a vibrant fan fiction community. And the reason I don't understand it is because the Endbringers make total sense. The powers make total sense. The concepts like the Slaughterhouse 9 make total sense. But they keep using characters from Worm and they just make them completely different characters. So it's like, stop, just make your own characters. Just use shards from Worm and your own original thing if that's what you're going to do. But they call it Taylor, but it's not Taylor. It's a completely different person. You just wrote your own character. You gave her different powers. You gave her a totally different personality. You gave her a different backstory. She's not Taylor anymore. Don't do that. Call her your own person. Make it Tyler. I don't care. It's a different person. I'm done. I'm sorry. I get hyped up. So, what is Worm? Worm is an English language, serial novel about superheroes. So it is an original superhero universe. And what it's mostly famous for is that it has a system for the superpowers. So the things that fuel the superpowers are shards, which are like extra dimensional beings, basically the fragments of an extra dimensional being that then get sent out to bond with people who then develop a superpower based on what their shard originally did of this extra dimensional entity. And then they're driven to fight one another to kind of test the powers against one another in the hopes of solving entropy, is the long story short. So it's kind of a cool thing where they've got very cool superpowers, very cool variety of superpowers, and then mechanics behind how they work and why superheroes and superhero villains are a thing in the setting, which is extremely cool. Anyway, did you see Deadpool and Wolverine? Yes, I did. Deadpool and Wolverine was great. All right. What was your inspiration in coming up with the personal revelations in order to progress through the Lord Realm rank? Oh, dude. Okay. Reg said Underlord is my favorite. I'm with you. So what was your inspiration from coming up with the personal revelations in order to progress to the Lord rank? Well, back on themes again. One of the themes of the cultivation novels that ultimately inspired Cradle is that your personal power progression is tied to your insight into yourself and into the universe, and those kind of enlightenment and increased ability go hand in hand, right? So that was one of and as I was writing, that was one of the things that I really liked. And so of course then I'm coming up with my original take on it, and I wanted to do something similar. And as I was working through Gold and working through the first few books, I really liked when the power progression was tied to character progression. So as I was trying to decide, okay, mechanically, how am I going to make the Lord realm different from the Gold realm? I came up with Soulfire, and then I was going, okay, then now narratively, how do I want to make it different? And I realized, okay, let's just make it a real thing. This because I was already doing it so that every advancement came with a personal revelation, but it wasn't part of the magic system. It was just how I was writing the story, right? So I decided to make it part of the magic system, and that was one of my favorite decisions that I ever made. If I were to design the system again from the ground up, what I would do is I would probably make that more fundamental to the Cradle system. I would make it more, I would tie that more. You'd have more revelations. You'd have more the personal, it would be a part of the magic system that personal progress is tied to spiritual progress. So
I don't know if this will be in the list, but someone asked if you know what Ethan's revelations were.
dang it, I actually do know the answer to that, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. I have them written down. It's something like it's something like I saw, I see, I will see. It's something like that. Yeah, it's very similar to that, right? And it just meant something different to him at the different points of his life. So that was the kind of idea. I don't remember if that's I might contradict this later. What is your Elden Ring build? I've changed it many times, of course, because you got to do different builds. But I initially did a wizard build, and then that was my first full playthrough, and then my second full playthrough for the DLC, I did a bleed build because everybody does bleed builds. Everybody does. So I did dual katanas bleed because that's what everybody uses, and that was the most popular build, and I'd never used Dex before, so I was like, I've never used Dex except in Dark Souls 3. I played Dex build in Dark Souls 3, but any other time I've never done Dex. So I was like, okay, let me try it out. Power stance and katanas feels so fun. No wonder it is the most popular build. So I went through that, and then I got to Rilana in the DLC, and she has these super awesome dual swords where it's twin great swords, one of which is blazing with icy magic blue fire, and the other one is like divine flame. And I was like, well, I got to switch to that. So I switched to that. I played basically the entire rest of the DLC with that build. And then I got to the final boss, and I couldn't beat it with that build. Couldn't beat it. Couldn't do it. Couldn't beat it with that build. So I embraced the shame, and I went with the most powerful bleed build, whatever the stupid drumstick thing is called, the severed arm, the blood fiend's arm. And I did that, and that was how I beat the final boss. And I felt kind of sad. I didn't use the poke build. I used the bleed build, two-handed hammer. So it was a little less shameful than a poke build, but not. I was still a little embarrassed. I was like, but anyway, not that you should be embarrassed. You can use whatever you want to beat Elden Ring. That's totally cool with me. You're no shame in Elden Ring. But I was I was sad that I had to switch builds. I wanted to beat it with the build that I was using with the cool dual swords, but I couldn't do it. I just wasn't good enough. Cradle has ended. When do the Ascension stories begin? Soon. That's what I'm working on now. It's the Ascension short stories. Although not all of them are post-Ascension, but a lot of them are. All right. The Bloody Chicken Wing. Yeah, that's exactly right. How did you come up with Sesheth Kanaz's name? This was actually pretty funny. So I came up with the dragon naming convention before we had audiobooks. So I was intentionally going, I want them to sound, I'm going to the draconic stuff like you see in Warcraft, where they have, just the kind of dragon sounding names. They're long. They kind of sound like a lizard would name them, like Sesheth Kanaz, right? But it's also something that is intentionally difficult to pronounce, which of course I made a joke about in the bloopers. Well, then I have Travis reading them, and he made several jokes already about like, okay, you made this as hard for me as you can, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. One of the jokes I really wanted to do, but this wouldn't be a joke on anybody but Travis. But I really wanted to write a short story where everybody's name is just as hard to pronounce as possible. And so it's like Sesheth Kanaz fighting Kasisharix, and they're using the and you just sort of make up all this nonsense. Anyway, what are the odds we get a story on Suriel's path to judge? That's very much an idea. Gonna play The War Within? No. All right. So many questions. Did Fury and Mercy really understand Little Blue when she was tiny through Underlord? I don't understand that question. Do they really understand her? Oh, when she was tiny. It says when she was tiny. And so I was like, oh yeah. So yeah, there was to some degree, yeah. Mercy and Fury, what they're doing, Mercy and Fury, what they're really doing. Well, Mercy at least. What Mercy was doing is she was playing along. She got the same vague impressions from Little Blue that Lyndon and Aaron did, but she was going like, it's rude to be like, huh? And so she was going, yes, of course, 100%, even though she only got it a little bit, kind of like a Ryan response. Fury understood her completely. Fury has long history of talking with spirits. Fury knew exactly what you meant. Was there a time when monarchs could stay on Cradle without generating hunger aura? Yes, there is actually there's a large margin for error on that. So you can not ascend for years, but it's when you start doing it for decades and when there are multiple monarchs that there start being a problem. So it's you have to really unbalance it for things to get broken to the degree that they were. But if you were the only monarch on Cradle and you ascended to monarch, you might not even notice that. Like you can tell that you're causing a problem because you can sense that because you're a monarch, but it might not be visible. You might not cause any visible issues for 10 years. Did monarchs stay on Cradle before the Dread Gods were created? No, they did not. So what they did was before the Dread Gods were created, yes, but before the Dread Beasts started being born, no. The idea was that you were supposed to ascend. So that's becoming a monarch is kind of a workaround to the way the magic system naturally works. And was hunger aura an issue before the soulsmiths who created the Dread Gods rose to power? Yes. Was hunger aura an issue before soulsmiths who created the Dread Gods rose to power? Yes, it was. It was an issue. This was something when Osmanthus was around, hunger aura creating dread beasts was a thing. That was a problem. That was an issue. So that was one of the things that he was aware of when he was on Cradle is this is a problem. But it wasn't as much of a problem until the Dread Gods were created and until more monarchs stayed around. And it was kind of funny because it almost kind of created a spiral effect, because now the Dread Gods encourage the monarchs to stay because only the monarchs can defend their people from the Dread Gods, and then it makes the Dread Gods stronger, and so on and so forth. So even Dross, asking about the origin of the Dread Beasts. Well, there you go. All right, that was the answer. Different question, but effectively I already answered it. If you were to jump back into the world of Cradle to write a new story completely separate from Lyndon's tale, what setting of Cradle would you want to play with? What continent, faction, or time period? What a great question. Okay. All right. I have thought of this. This is one of those things that I've put some thought into, because I really did consider it, at least for some short stories, right? Just to go, it'd be kind of neat, because as some people have pointed out, while the Dread Gods and the Hunger Madra and all this is kind of like the main story of Cradle as a setting, it is not by far the only one. And there are people who, there's not really anybody on Cradle who wasn't aware of the Dread Gods, but there would be people who were not at all involved in this entire Dread God war and this whole thing with Lyndon, and then was just separate. So there were a lot of other things happening on Cradle, and certainly for its history, right? So there's a lot of things I would want to do. One of the things I'd want to do is some more on the Everwood continent. I think how they use living remnants in their technology is very cool and very fun, and it's a very different setting. On the other hand, it's also very different from the rest of Cradle, so it doesn't super feel like Cradle as much. So that's kind of that was sort of the thing I kept going back to. What I would want to do is something that like Lyndon Who, this is just completely separate from Cradle. Kind of like in Star Wars, it would be kind of fun to write something that was completely outside of the Empire, right? Like, it just be something totally unrelated. Anyway, that would be fun, but I don't know that I will ever do it. I might do some short stories. As of the epilogue and Waybound, how powerful is Lyndon compared to a judge? Very small. Very small. Lyndon is not compared to a judge. You don't compare Lyndon to a judge. You can compare Lyndon to some mid-level Abaddon, right? Like that's fair. Him getting,
because he's like a 2-star wolf or something already, right?
Are we going to be getting a prequel at some point? Prequel stories for sure. I don't know about a prequel series, prequel book. I'm not sure. But yeah, so he could be compared to yeah, some midish level Abaddon. I would say probably like a 2-star wolf, somewhere around there, 3-star. Actually, I think I answered that. 3-star. I don't know. I don't remember. It's somewhere around there. It's in a story somewhere. But it's still, it's like he's got the chops. He's a really good. Can you get it? Yeah, I'll give it to you with the map. I'm just kidding. I won't. So he is relatively powerful compared to a regular like rank and file Abaddon. Compared to the judges, no, he's not. He's nothing. Even without the mantles and the weapons, like a judge packs Linden up.
Do you want to take another break?
What time is it? Oh yeah. Wow, it's been another 45 minutes.
Break.
Okay.
And while that happens,
I will.
Kindle has been dying to know what your favorite character point of view is, and you have answered this before, and I'm going to talk
Kindle
in the chat.
Oh, Kindle in the chat. You want me to answer? Are you an answer?
It's Ethan Dross Bliss from Elder Empire.
It's true. That's right.
Yeah, did it. I listen when you talk. Mom, mother.
Wheel me.
She's on a 10-second lag, so I'm pretty sure she's going to come in here. Now you just get... Wait, I left my notes.
I'm wheeling myself. Get your notes. Oh, Sam's got me.
Sam's here.
If nobody got me, I know.
Don't vomit on Will. Good times. Someone mentioned Hoyd earlier, and I was very excited to be in the know because when there was the question of who would Ethan get along with in the chat. Oh, no.
I am so sick. I might be dying.
Don't breathe on me. I already have one illness, but I am tanked up on cold medicine. Okay, so I finally read Tress of the Emeraldty by Brandon Sanderson in the last couple weeks. And it was so good. And I loved it a lot. And I didn't realize how much Hoyd was in there. So I knew Hoyd because of all the references and memes. And because Will, years ago on a car ride, I had known that Stormlight Archives were too long. I read the first 6 books of Wheel of Time before the series had ended and was basically like, Will, I can't finish this because the series isn't done. And I am not going to be I can't read fast enough or remember the details well enough to have to reread this when the series is done. So I stopped. And that's how I felt about Stormlight Archives. It's like, these books are too long. You hardcore fantasy fans are next level because every book is like 30, 40, 50 hour audiobook. I can't handle it. But on one Drive to Dragon Con years ago, Will basically verbally told me the entire story of the first Stormlight Archives book, which was a lot of fun. And then I've seen references to Hoyd on a lot of messages before. But anyway, I read Tress. So I was really excited when I saw that Ethan comment because I was like, I know the answer to this one. I'm part of the culture, you guys. It's so exciting. Also, I've seen several comments saying they were disappointed that they missed the Kickstarter, and you can actually still back the animation Kickstarter. There's a link on the Kickstarter page. The backer kit surveys are still open. We've only fulfilled the first reward, and it's digital, so we haven't completely closed being able to back on like the post Kickstarter store, which is on backer kit. But if you go to our Kickstarter page, there's a link where it says something like, if you missed it, click here. I should have pulled it up to tell you exactly what the button says, but it's on the animation Kickstarter page. You can find a link if you still want to back the animation Kickstarter and get an adorable little blue plush. I did want to tell you guys a little bit about our background here because we have like slightly different background every time. And some of it is stuff we've had just for fun, and some of it fans have sent us. So the cool thing, one of the coolest things to me, I'm going to do this going this way. Okay. All of these Drosses were made by different fans and given to us at different events or mailed to us. And one of my favorite things about just the fan community is so many people who have like figured out how to crochet Dross have put up patterns on the subreddit. So if you know how to crochet, you should definitely go search the subreddit for the patterns. And then Jess, who is, I'm pretty sure has got to be on here. She has made us several things, including the other way, Rebecca, that little blue. And then the Rebecca doll right there from Traveler's Gate. That is our little Orthos figurine. I am pretty sure we bought that. Goku, I have no idea. I'm pretty sure someone in my family bought it. Maybe it was a gift. I'm not doing a great job with this tour. That gnome we got forever ago because you can customize the sign, which was so exciting. So when Peach from Discord gave, that's very cool. Thank you, Peach. Also, Peach, if you're watching, I loved your picture for the background character. That was really fun. Yeah, so we bought that gnome with a custom sign that says Hidden Gnome Publishing. It's super cool. And then Travis sent us the little shuffles. And I thought he made it, and I was going to be very annoyed that he is good at everything. And then he told me he bought it, and I felt a little bit better about myself. Someone also commented, wait, you don't have all of your 4 through 6 special editions. No, we have not got them. We actually got them first because we obviously get the proof copies, and then we get some of the initial sets. But then I send the proof copies to the Sullivan so that they can make sure, like, if you've received your packages, you see how well it is packaged in box. And the bubble wrap is just like and it's because they plan it, but then after we're done approving all the proofs, I ship them those books, and they actually take their like packaging system and they make sure it is like airtight in there. So they have them. So then the last 2 streams, I've been like, I'm going to pull out the special editions of 1 through 6. And then I'm like, oh no, 4 through 6 are gone. What else is behind me? It's Will. It's a little Will voodoo doll, and then more of our books. Anyway, welcome to the backstage tour. The Shuffles plush looks like a grub from Hollow Knight. Boy, you're asking the wrong question about video game references. I am playing Subnautica for the first time. So look at me growing and diversifying in the video games I watch. Dross is multiplying. There are so many Drosses.
One thing you haven't brought up is that the spoiler scenes are done. Travis really late,
yes.
So we're waiting on him to
So for the Kickstarter for Cradle 4 through 6, one of the things that I think promise as a reward is additional scenes. So there are actually, I'm gonna hope I get this count right. 3 non-spoiler scenes. So 1 for each book. And then I think we did 2 spoiler scenes. Sam, did we do 3 and 2? 3 and 1?
We promised 1 spoiler, but he got excited when we did 2.
Okay, great. I remember things. He did. We have 3 non-spoiler scenes and 2 spoiler scenes, which by spoiler scenes, we mean they're scenes that only make sense or are only relevant after you've completed the series. So they are very good, and I'm very excited, and they were a lot of fun, and the spoiler scenes are both really great. But we haven't set them out yet because we want to share them all with you with audio and the text versions at the same time, and we are waiting on Travis, who is very busy and traveling and writing and recording and doing all the things all the time. So once he finishes, we're going to be able to share those hopefully in the next like 3 weeks. Yeah, they are very fun. Love Subnautica. I'm so excited. I did have the most classic video game experience this week because I have only played games where autosave is built in, and Subnautica, it is not built in. So I put in the first like 20 hours of the game, and then the game glitched and restarted, and I was like, no problem. I'll lose a little bit until it goes back to my previous autosave. And then there was no file, and I was very confused, and I was like, Will, you got to help me find my file. I'm doing something wrong. And he was like, did you save? And I was like, what do you mean? I've been playing on the Switch. It autosaves. And that is not the case. So I was very sad and very, very depressed. And then Will was like, next time I see you, I'm going to get you back to where you were. And he got me back to where I was in about 2 hours because he has played the game many times and didn't want me to give up. And I really appreciate it. Yay, Will. Older brothers played the game a lot. Yeah. Thank you for the sympathy. I was like, well, closing all my Subnautica tabs, putting the Switch away, never going to play again. Now I save all the time. Turns out I have to do that. Someone asked me, am I scared? Of so many things. Life, live streams. I don't know what the question was actually about. When can we expect the next Kickstarter? Yeah, it's really going to be probably in the next 2 months. So once we generally have to make sure we've substantially fulfilled one Kickstarter before we can launch the next related one. So very soon, we are already very much working on it. Yeah. I talked about you can still back the Kickstarter. I'm going to go back over here. So somebody asked a question that I decided to answer instead of Will, which is no, come back. It was, did Lyndon and Urine actually have a marriage ceremony and who officiated? And I just wanted to share with you my headcanon, which has no bearing on reality, but it's what I believe would have happened, which I believe that Lyndon and Urine absolutely had a ceremony, and they meant to keep it like a small little affair. And they were like, we're not going to like talk about this very much because someone is going to overhear and make it a huge thing. And so instead they were trying to like secretly plan it, and they show up to like have a like private little thing with just a few people. And then Ethan has done this like elaborate ceremony with everyone they've ever known or met. And of course he officiated, because in no universe are they able to have a wedding without Ethan officiating that. So yeah, that's now what happened. Mother White agrees with me, so therefore it's correct. And the writer, I guess, has no say. Your turn. Goodbye.
Hobble. Hobble. Ha! I guess that's canon now. I don't know. I don't have any. I've been overridden. I'm just going to leave it with that. Moving on. Can Will sign my tattoo? Yes, 100%. I'll sign your tattoo. I'll sign anything. Somebody asked, will you write more progression fantasy? Yeah, probably. Yeah. The only thing I was thinking about with Last Horizon is I didn't want to write only progression fantasy, and I had just gotten done spending 7 years writing a progression series, and I was like, okay, I don't really want to just like start over. I don't want to, hey, let's hop on the beginning of the treadmill again. So instead of that, I just wanted to try something different. And I also didn't want to some people are not as into the progression elements. So I'm going, okay, well, I wanted to give them something for a while. So those were my motivations on The Last Horizon. However, usually when I come up with story ideas, they often fit into the progression fantasy mold. I really like progression fantasy. I read a lot of it. So it's almost certainly I'm going to do it again. But I don't feel married to doing it or not doing it. I'm just like, yeah, well, we'll see. Next time it comes up for me to write something new, we'll see. But probably, yeah. All right, here we go. Are the Abaddon objectively good, or as in, are they the best option? I actually talked about this earlier. So no, the Abaddon are not objectively good or objectively correct. The Vroshir systems, as it is, could work. There is they could do the Abaddon could do other things. What keeps them on the kind of the good guy side and then the Vroshir on the bad guy side is that the Abaddon, generally speaking, really are out for the preservation of as much of the multiverse as possible. They really are trying to do that. That is their motivation. They are trying to ultimately trying to help people. The Vroshir ultimately are out for themselves. Now, they are not really trying to make the universe a better place. They are really trying to keep as much of it for themselves as possible. And if they can help other people while doing that, sure. So ultimately speaking, that's kind of the idea. But of course, the Abaddon are not correct about everything. There are definitely better systems that would work, as we saw when the entire everything collapsed. All right. Where was I? In all caps. The scene in Soulsmith where Yaren taps her sword and instantly cuts her hair perfectly better be in the animatic. That was good. I like that. It's not in the animatic. I have written that script. We've already recorded it. That scene is not in there. And there's no reason it should be in there. But I do like your passion for keeping it. I appreciate that. That's a great moment. I do like that. Let's see. Are you a sports fan? And what team? Sam has instructed me to say yes, the Atlanta Falcons. The actual answer is no and no team. That's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to sit there and do random nonsense sounds into the mic. Would having people actively live in Ghostwater have stabilized it in the same way that doing so stabilizes territories from Traveler's Gate? That is a great question. No, and here's why. Ghostwater is an artificial imitation of a territory. It is not a real territory, and real territories are only stable because of the iteration they're in, because of the properties of Amalgam. So having people live there did stay, like, that helped, but it was Northstrider had to constantly do maintenance and upkeep to keep that thing from falling apart. And so therefore it was never going to last forever. It was more of a raft than a stable floating ship. Are there some side characters that you wish you could have done more of or included more in the story? Yeah, sort of. Are there some side characters you wish you could have done more with? Yes. So, like, for instance, Fisher Gesha. So that's something that, like, I really like her when she's interacting with the team. It just became increasingly unbelievable that she would be involved in the things the team were doing. So I just like her as a character, and I like her interactions with the team. So it's like, yeah, that would be sure. There's something like that. But in the sense that you mean, where it's like, were there characters that you really wanted to explore more of and go more into their stories? Kind of yes and no. There are characters that I would have loved to explore more of. So one of the things I'm doing in the story is Yan Xiaomei. These people are talking about Jai Chen. Someone is again asking, why did you do Jai Long so dirty? I have an actual answer for that. So I did Jai Long so dirty because that was something where I went, okay, first of all, this is the point in the story where I just felt like somebody ought to die. A named character ought to die. And I'm going, it makes sense that there would be someone at least relatively, like some of the people are aware of. And I thought it makes sense with the conflict ramping up. Somebody that they know dying makes sense. But I also didn't want it to be someone that was that important of a character. So it was because that would kill the tone too much. So somebody who could die that the reader would care about more than the characters, and that the tone wouldn't impact the tone too much. And so then I set Jai Long up to make sure that he had as much to live for as possible before I allowed him to die. So I was going, okay, yeah, I could have set it up so that his arc concluded and then he died, right? But I didn't want to do that because the whole idea I felt was people don't conclude their arcs before they die. They have incomplete arcs. That's what a life is. So generally speaking, you don't get a chance to tie up all your loose ends before you are killed in a war. So I was like, yeah, let's let him die. And so some people were upset by that, and I understand that, and I do get it. And there is that possibility of, yeah, sure, that's what happens in real life, but this isn't real life. It's a story that was designed to be satisfying. So there is an argument to say, yes, of course, that's how it worked in real life, but at the same time, this isn't real life, and that is true. That's a very valid argument, and it's one that I make often. But in this particular case, I don't think killing Jai Long was that big of a deal. So I still am like, that's one of those that I don't mind at all. So some people got really upset about that. Other people were just like, yeah, it's missed opportunity, but it's okay. Other people were like, yeah, good riddance to Jai Long. And I'm going, I don't know. I kind of think that debate is evidence that it was a perfectly fine thing to do. It's not like everyone was very upset about it. It's not like everyone had the same opinion on it. So that was something that I don't feel too bad about that one, to be completely honest. There are definitely things I've tried that I think that I think were worse. Which paths were the hardest to write around, if any? I think you've asked that before. Which paths were the hardest to write around, if any? You've asked that, I think, several times, and I'm not certain I understand the question. Hardest to write around. I don't know what that means exactly. So I'm assuming that means the most difficult to describe, or perhaps the most difficult to write a fight involving this path. And I think the answer is a lot of the paths that have a lot of different techniques. So it's stuff like the books of 7 pages. So like Fury does not have a book, but Charity does, Pride does, and Mercy does. And having to just reference the techniques by name, that's 21 techniques between the 3 characters. That's a lot. So Mercy, you can go into detail of her past, right? Just because she's a major character. But then the reason I didn't reference a lot of the Pride's techniques by name, and then Charity's, one of the things I got to do for me, there was like a little treat for Will, was I had Charity's book figured out since like Black Flame, since forever ago. So from a long time ago, I had Charity's book just to kind of like figure out and sort of prototype the whole book of 7 pages process. I did Charity's all the way through. And so I had that document around from forever. And in Waybound, she has that chapter where she actually gets to like use all of her techniques. And I didn't do that before, even though I knew the names of all of her techniques and what they did, because I didn't want to overwhelm the reader with too much information. But then at the end of the series, I was like, it's the final book. We know Charity. It's just going to be for this one fight. Let's let her use all her techniques. And she did. So that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that quite a bit. All right. Well, that was one of somebody's pointing out I think it was a bummer Jai Long died, but I think, like you said, it raises the stakes, and you didn't go all George R. R. Martin and kill everyone all the time. Yeah, that was one of the big things. One of the things I thought about endings, which I've said before, a lot of people like J.K. Rowling, for instance, seem to feel like at the end of your series, in order to ramp up the stakes and for everything to feel like it is a final boss, you've got to kill as many people as possible. And I don't agree with that. I think it very much depends on the type of series you're writing. And obviously, if you're here and you finish the series, I didn't kill any of the main characters, which I could have. There's a whole aside. Anyway, I could have, but I didn't think this isn't that series, right? This series doesn't need to be that serious. The series doesn't need to be that dire. I didn't think that was the tone. I thought it was right on the tone of the Jai Long level. Who came the closest to dying? Orthos? That's the answer.
I was
And
sad when Orthos left because I just knew he was gonna die.
yeah. And so Orthos and Zeal, those are the ones who came the closest. I probably wouldn't have killed both of those. I probably would have just killed one or the other. Grace, obviously, I wish Grace had lived. I loved Grace. Yeah, see, yeah, Grace was one I was also on the fence. I just created and developed Grace because he needed to know one of those people one of those people who dies. He needs to know them personally so that they could represent the rest of the characters who also die. And you didn't need to know the rest of them too much. But you rock. Thank you, Thorgrim. You rock too. So he just needed to know one of them personally. And that was one where, but as I developed her, I kind of was like, oh man, I don't really want to kill her. I kind of wanted her around too, but there were already a lot of Akura people around. So it was sort of like, yeah, I needed to just, she served her narrative purpose, it was sad though. I kind of wanted her around more too. All right.
There's one question in here I did want you to answer. Talk to us about Ethan's reaction to Mercy getting the joy icon.
Where's that?
It's near the
you
bottom.
read it. I just don't see the question. Oh, what did Ethan think about Mercy getting the joy icon? Okay, yeah.
The question I just asked you.
No, I just didn't know if there were any other details in the question. I was just looking at the question. I was just finding where I was. All right. So what did Ethan think about Mercy getting the joy? Well, yeah, that's how somebody said, Will just wanted to avoid the Linden urine. Mercy Grace loved quadrilateral. Yeah, that was the other thing is people were already poking me with the, ooh, are you going the harem route? No, at no point was I ever doing that. But if I had let another potential love interest live, it would have been like, Will, what are you doing? Like, I'm not doing that, I swear. So that was another thing. All right. All right. What did Ethan think about Mercy getting the joy icon? Ethan was overjoyed. That's what you did there. So what had happened was when he got reverted back and we had to be Osriel again, he couldn't now develop the joy icon. That was another thing that he was disappointed about. So then when Mercy does, it kind of feels like a win by proxy for him. Like he's like, yes, one of my people did it anyway. So he was very excited, very encouraging. That was something that so it kind of feels like he actually did it, but he sort of did it vicariously. So yeah.
Okay. I remember when Will was writing Reaper and he had floated the idea of having Ethan manifest the joy icon before he ascended. He was going back and forth, and I remember us having that conversation. And I'm still a little bit sad he didn't do it, but also the ending of Reaper is perfect, so I don't want to change it. But also that would have been so good.
Anyway, someone says, thank you for not ruining your books with garbage love triangles. Look, if you know anything about me, you know I don't like spending too much time on romance. So the more romantic development there is in the book, I just like it's painful to write. But I don't have a problem with it on a theoretical level. It's one of those things that I just go, it's what to develop a romance, to do a stock standard romance like you read in most books, especially most like shonen style stories, is not very difficult, and it's something that would not be hard to do. The what's difficult is doing it in a way that is believable and locks into your characters when it's not primarily an emotional conflict. So that's the thing. In stories where the conflict is primarily emotional, linking romance to it or any other complex character dynamics is not that hard because the primary plot revolves around the relationships of these characters. But when your primary conflict is not emotional, you just have emotional stakes in the conflict, wrapping the romance in there without taking a lot of time away from what the readers are actually here to see, that is difficult. That's what's so hard. So when I sit down to write, it is very difficult to write an interesting scene that advances the romance, but is also engaging for people who are not there for the romance. So that is hard to do. So it's one of the things I liked about Lind and Yaren is they are friends, and we see their friendship develop and we see their relationship develop, and it develops around the course of the plot and the series as the series develops. And that is something that you can then use as a foundation to build on with their romance. Whereas if I wanted to go into something like, so you said, thanks for not ruining your book with garbage love triangles. I have nothing against love triangles in theory, but in practice, they're garbage. So in theory, they're not. And I'm sure I can think of some sort of interest where it's like, oh, because that's emotional relational conflict, right? But they take time. It takes time to set that up in a way that is satisfying or interesting. And I generally speaking, I don't want to take the time away from the heart of the story to develop a romance that is not that important to the core of the story. So that's a big reason why I don't spend more time on romance. In order to do it well, you have to spend time on it. And I don't want to take time away and focus away from the main plot. All right. Ba-ba-boom. Lyndon versus the full crew of The Last Horizon. Who wins? Lyndon. Moving on. Before being an author was something you so there's a Lyndon's way outside the power scale at this point. This is more like Lyndon versus the entire universe of Fathom at what he's in. That's the level we're operating on here, and that he might lose, right? Like that's something where the if you really are getting everybody in the iteration together and prepped to fight off Lyndon, they probably could, but that's in terms of you maybe could trap him and kill him, but what they would probably be trying to do is just force him out of the universe. And so that they could potentially do. In terms of actually beating him in a straight up fight, nope. That's nope. He's using powers beyond their knowledge and understanding. So, somebody asked, before writing as an author was something you could afford to do full time. What kinds of jobs did you have? Interesting. I've talked about this a little bit. I don't know that I've ever been asked this question before, but I have talked about it a little bit before. And I mowed lawns for a long time, for 6 or 7 years. My siblings and I mowed. We had an actual landscaping business in our hometown. And so for undergrad and college, my parents couldn't afford to pay for any college for me at all. So we ended up getting scholarships and paying our way through college. So I commuted to college an hour and a half so that I could stay in my hometown and mow lawns. So the company name was Starving Student Lawn Care. That was the company name. Unofficially, because we had to pay a fee to the city. Officially, it was Will White's Lawn Care, but I never told anybody that. It was Starving Student Lawn Care. That was what So I mowed lawns. And then in grad school, I then sold the lawn business for enough to go to grad school. And when I went to grad school, I was working for the university on a fellowship, and they had me working on the writing center at the university, so helping people edit and improve their writing. And then as a teacher's assistant, man, I couldn't think. And then as an instructor for some basic creative writing classes. So I ended up teaching creative writing, the intro to creative writing, basically. So those were it kind of got closer and closer, right? So it's like a teacher's assistant, and then in a writing center, and then teaching creative writing. So it's sort of got closer. And then it was books. So I also did some freelance editing and some stuff in there in the middle, but that was kind of just sort of to supplement my income. All right.
2 more questions.
Okay, two more. Oh, well, here's one. Same person, but I commented on YouTube. I love the sibling bond going on. Were you all friends growing up too, or are you putting on an act and secretly hate each other? We are not putting on an act. We really like each other, and we always have been friends. One of the things that my parents did when we were growing up is we were allowed to fight, and we were allowed to not agree, and we were allowed to get grumpy and whatever, but we always had to make up. We always had to be friends afterwards. So that was so none of us are secretly harboring resentment. None of us are planning to kill the other and inherit his book business. None of that is happening. Definitely not at all. So this is we really did. We really always did like each other. What happened to Northstrider after he ascended? He drowned. If Lyndon ascended to Monarch normally, would his spirit have fought him, or just bowed and said apologies? That was actually a scene I really wanted to write that I didn't get to because Lyndon skipped that step. So I really did. I wanted to have Lyndon manifest his remnant and have it be like in 2 distinct pieces, like you had the 2 cores thing. I had a whole fun plan for it, but I ended up skipping it. Could you do the sibling dance to prove it? And no, because my foot is broken. Otherwise, I definitely would. Otherwise, I'd be doing the sibling dance 100%. Blink 3 times if Rebecca's holding a gun behind the camera. No, she's on camera. Holding the gun. If
I don't have a fake gun
finger gun,
we have fake wands.
We have a fake wand. She's holding a wand. That's what she's doing.
I don't think I could lift that.
What's your favorite Hunter x Hunter arc? Ooh, I mean, it's hard for me not to say Chimera Ants, but the actual answer is probably Greed Island. The Green Island is where it started to they started to get into the exposition heavy style that Hunter x Hunter is known for, but it wasn't so exposition heavy that they didn't kill that it killed all the action. Okay, what happened to North Strider after he did that? Does Lyndon's family join him in the heavens? Read and find out. What did you go to grad school for? Creative writing. Hey, so I have a master's degree in creative writing. And so I went to, the funny thing was I got my bachelor's degree in creative writing, and then I immediately went back to get my master's. And people have often, I've said this before, people have often asked me, is it worth it to get your master's in creative writing? And my answer is it was worth it for me because the grad school made me write and give feedback and take feedback. And those are all great skills. You got to finish stories. You got to give feedback. You got to take feedback. But as for the stuff they actually taught me, not so much. So there's a lot of stuff that you can learn from grad school that you can get for free online. So that's what I say. If you have but I didn't have the discipline to do that. I wasn't going to do it. And I think realistically, most people won't. So school is one of those things that did help me in those areas, but it's not like they teach you things you can't learn online.
All right, final question.
Final question. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, I got. What the eighth thing?
Let your heart decide.
I know.
Or maybe let the heart
Oh well, the final question is, which character other than the goat Ethan did you have the most fun writing? So I really did enjoy writing the goat Ethan. The human Ethan was fun too. I think he was probably my second favorite. So goat Ethan number 1, human Ethan number 2, turtle Ethan probably number 3. I would say of all the different kinds of Ethans. But my real question, the real answer to that is Dross. The Dross is the most fun to answer to write other than Ethan. But as a more fun answer than Dross, even though that is the correct, it's Ethan then Dross. That's the correct number 1 and number 2. The more fun answer is I really like writing Yaren in terms of like her Yarenisms. So she generally gets to just be kind of like Sword Girl, right? Like she gets to be the sarcastic, no nonsense kind of person, which that's a pretty normal character. There's nothing I like her specifically, but that's not super cool except for her mannerisms. So I really like writing her mannerisms. It's funny. It's fun to do the Yarenisms. It's fun to make up fun sayings and take sayings and spin them into Yaren styles. So anyway, all right, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hanging out with me for this last couple hours, and I will see you very soon. Now at Dragon Con. I forgot what I was supposed to plug.
I was supposed to do that earlier.
Oh, what's the
Dragon Con? In a couple weeks, if you're going to be there, we're doing our free fan event Saturday in Atlanta.
Yeah.
On the Saturday of Dragon Con after the parade.
You do not have to have a Dragon Con pass to attend.
We are also planning on doing a fan meetup of some kind at MegaCon in Orlando in February.
We're gonna do something. We're gonna do something.
Goodbye.
We don't know what yet, but we're gonna do something. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for being here. Yay! I'm gonna end it. I swear.